So as you can see here, I have picked up a Kyosho Ultima RT6 stadium truck, and I bought this for the upcoming outdoor season. I'll be building this and doing a build series as I typically do over hopefully the next few weeks. Um, so I want to talk a little bit about my thoughts on stadium truck and my experience with stadium truck and why I decided to go with the RT6. So as you probably know from all of my other videos, I like running pretty much every class of RC cars. I do short course, I do two-wheel drive buggy, I love four-wheel drive buggy. Stadium truck, I also very much enjoy it. And stadium truck is basically like two-wheel drive buggy, but with bigger wheels, and it's kind of a goofier kind of a chassis, right? The longer arms, the big fat wheels, big body, but it's still open-wheeled, and it's a huge amount of fun for me at least. So when I run stadium truck, especially on a loose dirt surface, I prefer to have a rear motor chassis. And that goes for any two-wheel drive platform. If I'm running two-wheel drive buggy on a loose dirt surface, I would much prefer to have a rear motor configuration. You can make a mid-motor chassis work by playing around with the weight distribution a little bit, by playing with the suspension and anti-squat, but it's a lot less effort to just throw a rear motor chassis down in the track and just have it go on a loose dirt kind of blown out sort of a track. And last summer I had a T4.1 that I ran, and there are videos of that in my video history. I really liked that chassis. It was very fast. I did quite well with it, for the races I went to. But the problem with the T4 series, which is it's the same problem that I had with the SC10 and the B4, the parts quality is very poor, especially with the drivetrain. If you put a modified motor in a B4 or a T4 or an SC10, it just destroys the gearbox. I went through countless idler gears. The diffs get very chunky or crunchy, in a relatively short period of time. I actually snapped a couple of CVAs. So, it was quite a lot of maintenance to sort of keep up with the drivetrain on the T4. And I really didn't enjoy that. So, the next stadium truck I got or built was the RC10 GTE, which I'm sure you've probably seen videos of by now. That's a mid-motor truck that is an electric conversion of an RC10 GT. It basically uses a fair amount of T4 parts or B4 parts, at least for the gearbox. And so far it's held up all right. And the CVDs have held up all right. But I want to preserve that truck a little bit. It was really good for the indoor season because it's a mid-motor truck. But for the outdoor season, I want something that's rear motor. So the only modern stadium truck that has that capability is the RT6. The T5M is only mid-motor. The low-C truck, I'm pretty sure it's only mid-motor. I could be wrong on that. But between, even if it had rear motor capability, I would probably prefer the Ultima RT6 over the low-C. Nothing against the low-C truck. I just have, I guess my experience with the Laser ZX6 kind of finally sold me on Kyosho. Even though the Kyosho kits are quite expensive, if you can get, occasionally you can get a deal on them. So I got a reasonable deal on this one. And the parts quality is just great. I love the shocks, the bearings, the diffs are smooth. Everything goes together very nicely. The only problems with Kyosho kits is that, yes, they are expensive, and the manuals are not that helpful, right? The actual build part is okay, but they don't give you shock oil. They don't tell you a baseline setup to use. You kind of have to figure that out on your own. So it's not really meant for beginners, these Kyosho kits, which is unfortunate. But that being said, again, I want to run a rear motor chassis for the outdoor season because I expect to run more on loose dirt type of surface. And I'd rather just have a chassis that's straight up rear motor and not have to fiddle around with a mid-motor chassis and try to make it work on a loose dirt surface. The T5M is a great truck. I know plenty of people that have it. It's quite good, but I'd rather have this, at least for the outdoor season. So that's kind of how I feel about it. And this has some interesting features like the quick change wheels. So there are no lock nuts or anything to mount the wheels. You just pull a little clip, wheel pops off, put the next wheel on, and it's all good to go. So I think that's a really neat feature. And I had a chance to look at the instruction manual a little bit before making this video, and it's kind of an interesting build. I mean, there are certain parts of it that are obviously different from, say, a Team Associated build, not only in terms of how it goes together, but also the design. And I will get into that in more detail as I actually go through the build. But there are, little things like how the gearbox mounts onto the chassis, and how the, rear suspension arm hinge pin mounts go onto the chassis, and how you adjust anti-squat, and how it's different from what you would do on, say, a T4, for example. So little things like that are kind of interesting. Yeah, but, I expect this build to be sort of similar in its cadence to something like the Laser ZX6 that I did, right? You have, in typical Kyosho fashion, a relatively small number of parts bags compared to something like a Losi or Team Associated kit. And each parts bag has a lot of parts in it, right? So this is like one parts bag, and you're going to use all these parts over many, many steps. So with Kyosho kits, you really have to have, space and organizers, like little, tackle boxes or something to organize all your parts, because it can get messy really quick if you're not careful. But take your time with it. Use calipers to measure out every screw to make sure you're using the right screws and the right washers and everything. And it'll actually go together, pretty well. It'll just take a little bit longer than something like a Team Associated build. When I built my SC5M, that only took me a few hours because I'd already built a B5 and a B5M, and you could just slap the whole thing together relatively quickly. But these Kyosho kits you got to take your time with. So some notable things about this kit, just by opening the box, and by the way, this goes with most Kyosho kits. It comes with wheels but no tires. Okay, no big deal, I guess. No shock oil. Okay, again, they don't give you a setup for that. There's no body either, and I think that's because this truck can be set up to be either a mid-motor or a rear-motor configuration, and with either configuration, you would need a different body. So instead of sending you two bodies, one of which you'll probably never use, just send you 0 bodies, and then you can pick out whatever body you want. So for the rear-motor configuration, I believe my understanding is you can use any T4 body, and it should fit just fine if you line up all the holes and everything. So that's what I'll do. I think that's it really, because I haven't, started building this. But I will make a build series as usual. Sorry I haven't posted videos in a while. I've been quite busy with work and other things related to the house. So I will get to this soon. Outdoor season is starting soon, and I gotta have this ready, or I would really like to have this ready by then. In the meantime, I have a few other projects I'm working on, nothing too crazy, but this will be the main sort of priority over the next few weeks. So stay tuned, and thanks for watching.